Whoopi Goldberg has been suspended from ABC's The View for 2 weeks after her remarks over the Holocaust. ABC's president, Kim Godwin, issued a statement saying, "Effective immediately, I am suspending Whoopi Goldberg for 2 weeks for her wrong and hurtful comments. While Whoopi has apologized, I've asked her to take time to reflect and learn about the impact of her comments," unquote. Goldberg visited The Late Show with Stephen Colbert after she issued her first apology, but seemed to dig herself deeper into controversy since her conversation with Colbert prompted another apology on The View on Tuesday. Let's take a look.
Have you come to understand that the Nazis saw it as race? Well, because they might, asking the Nazis, they would say, yes, it's a racial issue.
Well, see, this is what's interesting to me, because the Nazis lied. It wasn't. They had issues with ethnicity, not with race, because most of the Nazis were white people, and most of the people they were attacking were white people. So to me, I'm thinking, how can you say it's about race if you are fighting each other? So it all really began because I said, how will we explain to children what happened in Nazi Germany? I said, this wasn't racial. This was about white on white. And everybody said, no, it was racial. And so that's what this all came from. So once again, don't write me anymore. I know how you feel. Okay, I already know, I get it. And I'm going to take your word for it and never bring it up again.
Here with us to discuss are editor-in-chief of the Post-Millennial, Libby Emmons, and Democratic strategist and director at Waxman, Michael Starr Hopkins. Welcome to you both.
Thanks for having me.
So, Michael, Whoopi's been suspended. I think that's pretty dumb, and I'm looking on Twitter, and basically everyone else thinks it's dumb, too. Is it dumb?
Look, I think when you're talking about the Holocaust, it's such a nuanced discussion that, stay away from it. Let historians talk about the Holocaust. Let people who are experts talk about it in, a nuanced conversation. Whoopi Goldberg is probably not the person to be getting into a nuanced conversation about what the Nazis were thinking during the 1940s.
Libby, it feels like, given her second appearance with Colbert, she's got some genuinely held, if confused, views about the situation, which to me, it seems like the way to sort that out is to put her in dialogue with people who could kind of walk her through what she's missing here, rather than just a punishment and say, okay, you're wrong, you're punished. So
it's clear what she's missing is that she's missing that a racial issue is not necessarily white and black, is not the only racial category. She's thinking of race in the very narrow sense of skin pigmentation, based on what we just heard her say. Right? Because that's her confusion.
And she's I don't know, Libby, she's probably not alone in that confused understanding of it, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that she's not alone in her confused understanding of the Holocaust. I would just like to say, however, that the Holocaust was not a nuanced situation. You had Nazis who hated Jews and wanted to exterminate them and tried their hardest to do that. I don't think re-education for Whoopi Goldberg is the answer. I don't think we need to send her packing off to get a better understanding of the Holocaust. She's an older woman. She's had plenty of time to get her understanding, and this is where she's landed. In terms of having her kicked off The View for 2 weeks, what is this, some kind of cancellation light? It's absurd. She's going to come back with the same views that she has now. And if she has audiences and people want to watch her show, then, I guess we should just let them. But yeah, the Holocaust is not nuanced. It's a classic Jew killing scenario.
Just to be clear, I didn't say the Holocaust was nuanced. I said conversations around the Holocaust are nuanced. Yeah.
I would disagree with you on that one too. I don't think there's a lot of nuance in, a brutal fascist force.
Maybe we could say that
race.
Maybe we could say that the development of the constructions of ethnicity and race over history are nuanced in the way that they intersect with each other.
But it's clear that, but it's also, she's saying this is she basically said the Holocaust was white on white crime. That's what she said. That she was going into that direction of discussion. But the Nazis would not have viewed it as like that's a very modern understanding. That's a very recent understanding, and that white people are a monolith that include Germans and Italians and Northern Europeans and and Jewish people, and everyone is white. Whereas the Nazis said, no, we are of one race, and Jews are of a very distinct, different, and inferior race. Which, that's what she's missing to me, right?
Yeah, that Jews can be considered white is entirely a function of American assimilation,
right?
Where anybody who is in the U.S. for long enough eventually sort of, takes on that, any immigrant group from Europe, rather, I should say, takes on that affiliation with whiteness in a broader culture, as those European immigrants lose their national culture and lose their traditions that go along with their ethnicity and their national origins, they all just become white. This happened to Jews as well, Germans, Italians, Irish, Russians,
right.
Latvians, whoever else, take your pick.
Which is actually a view, funny enough, and funny being absolutely the wrong word, a sort of revolutionary view that Hitler took, that white people everywhere were part of this same master race, whereas prior to that, not so far before that in history, you had different ethnic groups who we would now all consider to be white, saw themselves as distinct ethnic groups, right? They didn't get like my grandparents were a mixed marriage because it was Italian and Polish. Like it was, which is now we would all consider they're all white people, but you would not have, there was not, that thinking just didn't exist. And I guess, so Michael, I guess that's what I'm getting at here. There's a very new, fashionable in sort of progressive, liberal identity politics, whatever you want to call it, circles, that has made race a very black and white monolith. And that was the language that was what Whoopi was speaking to, that I think there's not an appreciation for how new, I mean, that's fine to understand it this way. These things are all being socially constructed, but that is a new social construction. So to try to retrofit that on to like how the Nazis thought or how people before that thought, that's why she's getting it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, it's because of the one drop rule for the most part. In U.S. history, if you had one drop of black blood, you were considered black, and you were either white or black. And we had immigration with Italians and Irish, and there were certainly bigotry against them, but not in the way that we saw against African Americans. And so I think that we've taken this Western viewpoint or whether Whoopi Goldberg has taken this Western viewpoint of race and applied it to something where it's not applicable.
Yeah. The bigotry against Irish people was pretty bad, right? They were not enslaved, but it was really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They weren't in shackles, but
yeah.
Right.
Sure.
Right, and Italians, Polish, etc.
Yeah.
And Catholic. Like there was a lot of Catholic, hostility toward Catholics in the 19th century United States. Up until mid 20th century United States.
So this is the whole kind of cancel culture thing. Somebody gets in trouble. We would talk about Joe Rogan a lot. Like people are, trying to get him canceled from Spotify. Here is like, Whoopi's a person of liberal, mainstream liberal circles. She has a mainstream liberal talk show, and like this is her punishment. 2 weeks. This is us dealing with it, which I think we all think is stupid. Like no one thinks this is doing any good or is necessary. There's so much stuff said on that show that I think is totally wrong. I don't know that this was more wrong than the average opinion expressed on COVID or any other subject on the show. Libby, is this the future? I mean, this is almost the most favorable result, right? If she was someone on the right, she might have lost her show over this.
She might have lost her show over this. I think it's probably unlikely. There's probably a lot of people who feel similarly to Whoopi on this issue and see Jews as not particularly persecuted, which of course is a function of the existence of Israel and, American assimilation and Americans being rather accepting of other people despite press to the contrary. So yeah, I don't even think she really should have gotten suspended, because I don't think that it's going to make any difference either to Whoopi or the network or her viewers.
Right, and if the new rule is that anything dumb and offensive said on The View leads to a 2-week suspension, they'll have bigger host problems than just trying to find a right-winger. But Libby, Michael, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Thanks.
And we will have more Rising right after this.